Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Feely, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Before I start today's show, I have exciting news for founders, CEOs, and franchise brand presidents. Join me January 14th through the 16th, 2025 in Tampa for the first ever Emerging Franchise Brands live event, an exclusive opportunity designed just for you. It's my blueprint for success at every stage of franchising, one I wish I'd had, packed with real-world solutions and strategies to solve your challenges today and prepare for those you'll face tomorrow. Space is limited, so head over to emergingfranchisebrands.com to secure your spot today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the president of PVolve, Julie Cartwright. Julie, how are you today?
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being on. So tell us, what is PVolve? What are you guys all about?
Yeah, PVolve is actually a brand new modality in the market of fitness. And what it is, it combines functional movement and resistance-based equipment together. And what that does for the body is not only produces like a lifted butt, really great toned core, defined arms, which is absolutely what you would expect from your fitness choice, but it also does so much more. It actually helps with mobility, flexibility, posture, balance, pain relief, prehab, if you will, and helps you to avoid injuries. And there's just a lot we've done around proving that out. So it's really an amazing workout that really anyone can do, but it certainly feels a little bit different than probably what you're doing.
Okay. So how was this concept even born?
The concept was born, the founder, Rachel Katzman, she was bouncing around from boutique fitness to boutique fitness in her early 20s. I think she was 21, 22 at the time. And she was really seeking a physical look, again, lifted butt, really strong core to look good. And through that, she was waking up every single day in pain. She was sort of attributing this idea of getting a great body with being in pain, and that's what you have to do. It's like no pain, no gain. Right. And she realized she had scoliosis. She got diagnosed with scoliosis, and she was sort of at a loss. And she one day walked into a gym and they were training more of functional movement, which functional movement is more moving the way your body was intended to move. It sort of mimics your everyday movements. You move in all three planes of motion. And she not only started to get the results that she wanted, she'll tell you, she's like, oh my gosh, my body was exactly what I wanted. But more importantly, she had this aha moment that, wow, I'm actually waking up energized. I'm not feeling depleted. I'm waking up without pain. And this idea was born. She said, what can I do to really accelerate the results that I'm starting to experience? And she was a young entrepreneur. She's the daughter of a really successful entrepreneur. And, she was raised sort of around the kitchen table of what is she going to do, like in terms of the first company that she's going to build. And she just stopped at nothing. She got my name and, we just started to build this together.
Okay. So how'd she find you?
Oh gosh, she found us, thank God, through a family friend. I had spent about 18 years in really product development, home entertainment. I worked for a home entertainment company. So think VHS back in the day. Right. VHS, DVDs, and then digital. And the company that I worked for was owned by Starz and then later was acquired by Lionsgate. And so I was in product development, I was in marketing, I later ran home entertainment. But really the important thing is that I was the general manager for our fitness division my entire career. So for 18 years, I had worked with Billy Blanks and Tracy Anderson and Crunch and Weight Watchers and just developing really content
Oh, wow.
to sell to major mass retail. And so the industry is pretty small. And she kept hearing my name through a family friend, and I kept being like, "Yeah, sorry, I've got a job. I'm really happy where I'm at," and kept rising up in my career, and later was running home entertainment for Lionsgate. And she just wouldn't take no for an answer. She just would not. And I flew home on a red eye in January of 2017, and she flew in from New York to Chicago to meet me, and her story was so compelling. It was at the end of really the CrossFit boom, where a lot of people, and I've got mad respect for CrossFit, so I'm not at all talking negatively, but a lot of people were getting injured. And I was 40, so I certainly understood at the time how important it is to feel good, and to make sure that you're doing things that really will support you in your future. And it just spoke to me. I went home that night and told a friend. I said, my life has changed today. I just know it. And I decided to do a side hustle that entire year, being sort of an executive at Lionsgate, and then working nights and weekends, trying to help her sort of bring this concept to life.
Wow. That's fascinating. You had shared with me before we started recording the podcast, something that you guys are doing that's really, really unique in the fitness industry that is so common. There's so many, obviously, fitness franchises, but I want you to tell the audience, like, what you guys did that was so different. And I assume this is really how you really started the company.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things that we've done that's really different in terms of like our mode of distinction. First of all, we really started digitally native. So our method, PVOLV method, really is the functional movement and resistance-based equipment. And that's really important because we're clinically backed, and all of our results are around functional movement and our patented pieces of resistance equipment together, and what that sort of unlocks in your body. So first and foremost, it's the modality, it's our patented pieces of equipment. And we started to sell those globally through an e-commerce site, through Shopify. And that happened on November of 2017. And bing, 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 we're getting all these orders, and, so we're sort of onto something. And with that, we sort of knew that we had a concept that was resonating, this idea that you could get the physical look that you were looking for, but you also could have so much more from your choice of fitness. And so we decided to officially start the company on January of 2018. So I think the modality itself is a mode of distinction, the patented pieces of equipment, but also the fact that we started really D2C. And then Rachel and I sort of looked at each other and we said to ourselves, it's not going to be okay just to have a digital community. It really won't. We are also consumers, and we know that there's times when you need to show up in real life, that you want to have a physical community, that you need some accountability, that you need some maybe hands-on training. And we wanted to have an in-studio presence as well, where it was completely hybrid. And this was back in 2019, late 2018. And we wanted it to be completely fluid for the member, so that when maybe her baby was sleeping at home and she couldn't get in, she could do her exact workout at home, but then she could also meet up with her girlfriends on the weekend at her local studio, which is kind of a crazy concept, to be honest, because when you think about straight digital and e-commerce and D2C play, it's very high margin. And we had to go to the investor and say, by the way, I know we're growing and that's really high margin and that's great, but this isn't going to be the long-term success of the company. We really need to build out physical locations. We want to have a couple that are owned and operated so that we can make sure that we can make this successful. And then what we're going to do is we're going to franchise. And the reason we're going to franchise is because Rachel and I were entrepreneurs. We knew what an owner puts into starting a business, making sure that it's successful, staying with it during its tough times, and rising up when you're sort of reaching really success. And we wanted to build a world-class science-backed method, and we felt that owner-operators owning the physical locations was going to be the right model. And I think we had it right.
I think you did. The thing that you also did so right, Julie, that you and Rachel did from a timing perspective is you didn't know the future, obviously, but you took action way back when in 2017. You didn't know there was going to be a pandemic in 2020. Do you know how life would have changed for both of you if you had waited and kicked this idea around, if Rachel didn't, seek you out and you guys didn't start when you did? Because if she would have kicked this around for years, like so many entrepreneurs do, they have this idea, they have a fear, they don't want to get started. Their friends and family tell them all the reasons why something won't work. If you all had waited a year or two, you and I probably wouldn't be talking right now. And the significance I'm getting to is the fact that you mentioned D2C, and for those that aren't familiar, that's digital to consumer. So you started having a subscription-based online workout that folks could do, and you started this what year? The D2C?
We started in 2017.
Yeah, in 2017. And then you didn't franchise until 2023. So I mention this because there are so many emerging founders that are listening to this, or people wanting to franchise their company. And I want them to hear really closely to your story, because this is not about physical fitness. This is about two entrepreneurs that took massive action when you did, and timing is everything. Because you can make the right decision, but have the wrong timing, and it doesn't work out.
Oh my gosh, you are speaking to me. I mean, I'll tell you, it's not just about that. I mean, we started actually the FDD process, really setting up our franchise model in 2019. So that's really when we started to set everything up. We opened only one location, owned and operated, in late 2019. We opened our two other owned and operated in 2020. So we were the operators. But keep in mind, our business was sort of thriving on the D2C side. And so we were already digitally native. So when the world shut down in March of 2020, we were the operators that experienced that. We were the ones that were pivoting very quickly and making sure that our member base, our physical member base, knew that there was a digital solution. And it was so great to have to go through that as the operators, because I think you learn a lot of lessons, but there's so much more than that. I think I've been on a couple of podcasts where I'm so grateful for where this industry is at an inflection point, because I think we were incredibly progressive, and a lot of people called us crazy back in 2019 and 2020 when we were talking about women's health, when we were talking about menopause, when we were talking about movement for more than just getting a physical appearance, the idea about longevity. I remember talking to a marketing team and saying, I really think we stand for longevity. And they're like, oh, longevity does not work. It does not work in marketing jargon. And I'm like, but that's what we're doing. We're helping you to live longer. And so luckily, we had an investor that really believed in us. And so I'm so grateful for that. But a lot of people called us crazy. And now the entire industry has caught up to, you have to have hybrid. Right. You have to have options. You've got to have flexibility for your client base, not just your member base if you're not in fitness. And, you've got to have differentiation. And you have to stand for something. And we really took a women's first lens, and we weren't apologetic about it. That doesn't mean it won't work for you, Frank. It absolutely will. But what is built for a man doesn't necessarily work for a woman because of our hormones. But what works for a woman can work for a man. So it's just, I'm so grateful for those convictions. But believe me, if all of this wasn't happening right now, I wouldn't have learned a lot of lessons that are helping us to guide this company so much more successfully today. So a little bit of it's luck.
I will give you that. I've talked to many entrepreneurs at all different levels, some who have really surprised me. And when I hear their story, I know that there is sometimes a little bit of luck. But while you and I can talk about the luck of, when we started our companies, the fact is that you and Rachel started the company when you did. So yes, we don't know what the future is, but you took massive action. You took a chance. You weren't afraid to pivot, and you kept going, and you basically took responsibility during COVID and opened up the studios, you guys were your own guinea pigs by opening these studios instead of having somebody else open them. So you did all the things right. There's something to celebrate there, and you guys have done really a tremendous job.
Thank you. It's a fun ride.
And the ride is just getting started. So just to share with the audience some of the numbers, I understand that you have 14 franchises open, 3 corporate-owned locations. You have 38 franchises, you told me, that are in development. That's super exciting, that are not open just yet. And you're in 15 states plus Canada. So a whole lot has happened since you franchised in way back in 2023.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's so amazing just to watch these franchises open with these passionate owners that are so excited for the next stage of their careers. And I pinch myself every time. As a matter of fact, I'm going out to Salt Lake City this weekend to celebrate that opening. And it fills me up when I just see all that they've achieved, but also what we've achieved.
Yeah. One of the other big differences of your company versus other fitness franchises is this digital component. So I'd love for you to talk about how this digital component benefits your franchisees that are opening studios in their local market.
Oh gosh, it benefits them in so many ways. And again, I think this was progressive, and it certainly was something that we had to think a lot about just to make sure that it was on the advantage of the franchisee. That was very important. So Rachel and I have been really dedicated to building a science-backed, methodology. And so as part of that, we have expanded our digital reach globally. I mean, we've got tens of thousands of subscribers that love this method that can only consume us digitally because we do not have locations in those markets. And so as we started to open up locations, the conversation with our potential franchisee candidates is, all right, there's already a density of population of digital members. Those are going to in the territory that you're interested in. So we talk through that, and we talk through those numbers. And we are going to help to convert those digital members to studio members, because the studio members can also have full access to the digital membership. So that's part of what they pay to the franchise owner, these members. It goes to the franchise owner, and then we just make our royalties. So everything just flips over to the franchise owner. And there's a couple of things that I think are really important there. As we get more sophisticated around the data, our digital audience, when we survey them, more than 90% of our digital audience wants to work out in a studio. And so that's really exciting for us, because we know that, that's going to be, we also know that the studio member that takes at least one digital class as part of their membership, that they are the highest LTV customer for LTV lifetime, valued customer for that particular franchise unit. So these are things that we're starting to build into the story. We're very motivated to turn a digital member into a hybrid member and make that, basically flip that customer over to the franchise unit. There's also a lot of marketing benefit, in terms of pre-sales. We know that there's already word of mouth, flag flyers, people that even if they're not going to become studio members, they're advocates for the brand in those markets. This has been such a piece of our story. And, I think it's something that all fitness concepts are trying to figure out. Some will not be able to, because of their concept. They have large pieces of equipment, and they're just going to have something complementary versus actually this precious still same method.
Right. Well, there's a brand loyalty component that you're able to capture that your standard studio, other fitness franchise can't. And that is, you have this brand loyalty of folks that have been experiencing you on the digital side online. And then there's a studio that just happens to open in their market. So experiencing both the online and the studio just further deepens that attachment to what you're doing. And also, I feel like somebody who would I'm bought into your concept here, but just think about how you have a client who has been experiencing you digitally. And why do some people not want to go into a studio? Because of fear. They don't know what to expect. And in your case, they know exactly what to expect. So they have a level of confidence because they're
I love
going
that.
somewhere that they've already been experiencing online. They feel like already part of your community. They don't feel like they're going to some studio and people are going to look at them weird, or they don't know what they're doing. All those fears that people have when they walk into a gym, your client that's been experiencing you for years isn't going to feel that way.
You're so right. No, I think that's I can't believe that I have not sort of put that together prior to you mentioning that, but that's like absolutely the case. So it's an exciting business model for sure. And it's here to stay.
It is. Okay, so you also somehow caught the attention of a famous celebrity. So why don't you share who that celebrity is and how is she involved with Pvolve?
I always want to pinch myself when I say this, when I tell this story. Jennifer Aniston. I mean, mic drop. I can't, again, a tad bit of luck here. But the thing is that it's really about the fact that the method works. It works. And we couldn't have attracted Jennifer Aniston without a method that fundamentally touched her life. She had been secret streaming under an alias for about a year. She had watched a girlfriend sort of transform in front of her, and she needed to know what she was doing. And so she had been doing that. She reached out to get some private training. We're like, there's no way it's Jennifer Aniston. Absolutely not. And it was. And so her team ended up DMing us. I was on a golf course late night with my family, and the founder was wherever she was on a Thursday night at 6 p.m. And we're like, there's no way this can't be happening. And we got on the phone, and really her management team had no idea who we were. They're like, we don't know who you are, but Jen is obsessed with this method. It has changed her entire relationship with fitness because she had always been active. The woman is so unbelievably gorgeous and so strong. And she had been injured and she didn't want to sit on the sidelines. And she wanted to feel good in her body, but continue to exercise. And so she just absolutely loves this method. She works out 3 times a week with us and our trainer out in LA. Mm-hmm. But she joined the company officially in June of 2023. And really, she's using her platform to really help to educate that there is another way to move your body and that you should take note. And we've experienced a lot of growth ever since she joined.
Wow, that's exciting. That's something to be super proud of for sure. What a great story.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, okay, awesome. Not all franchisors get a celebrity endorsement like that. So let's I want to segue here too. We're talking about unique challenges or the uniqueness of Pvolve. I'd like to segue into unique challenges. Well, it's great to be unique on the benefit side. What are some of the unique challenges that your franchisees have when it comes to operating the brand?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest challenge that we've had is education. We're not a Barry's Bootcamp that has a really high brand awareness everywhere. We are telling you that you are going to get something different as a result from practicing this. And when you look at it, sometimes you would never expect that that's actually possible. It's low impact. Am I going to get the burn? Am I going to have my body change? Is it going to be the type of workout that I can do? Because it's different. Mm-hmm. And that's been sort of like one of the biggest challenges with building the brand. Now, we always knew that in 2024, when we started to get more density of in-person studios, of like brick and mortar studios and franchise units opening, that was going to be a huge part of our growth. That really these billboards in these major DMAs and this really in real life, very high touch experience was going to help to drive that awareness. But it just coincided with us also having a really amazing spokesperson that's been able to break through the clutter. So I would say that's been the biggest challenge, though we've got a lot of advantages mm-hmm. at the moment. Sure. And certainly where, like when we talk about the inflection point of where the industry is at, everyone's talking about longevity, everyone's talking about health span. Everyone's talking about movement that should support your future, women's health, that we've got to be aware of hormones. And so where the industry is at is helping with that too. So, but we're also, and I think this is really important, especially for the audience of your podcast. We're also still new. We're still an emerging concept. We only have 14 units, a total of 17 units open. Mm-hmm. And there are some learning lessons that we still learn with our franchise partners. And I think our early emerging franchise partners love that. They've got a real voice at the table. We listen to them because they're, boots on the ground in these different markets. And I had a franchise owner come to me yesterday and she's like, I really love the changes. I'm like, yeah, you were a part of that change. You spoke up. You had a point of view and we really listened to that. So it's not for everyone to get in on an early stage. There's a lot of advantages to it if it's successful. There's a lot of advantages of it because we don't have a copycat down the street. Mm-hmm. It's not like we're yoga with like rap music. That's not what we are. We're totally different than what anybody else offers. And so part of that is that you could really have a market that doesn't have a lot of options, but you also have to educate as to why that consumer needs you. So I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that. And it's really smart of you, Julie, also to bring this up because other founders that are listening to this, might be thinking, well, I don't have the celebrity endorsement. How am I going to win? And really, if you really listen to everything you've talked about how you started, how you pivoted in the business, how you're truly different. Having the celebrity endorsement is not going to make you win. And there's plenty of companies with the celebrity, representation doesn't make you successful at all. And I think it's fantastic that you talked about longevity way back when the marketing company didn't see this as something that had any teeth to it that was going to attract people, yet it's the big buzzword now. That's all everybody talks about in fitness is about longevity, right?
Yes. No, it is. And I'd like to comment on something that I think your audience, we were growing before Jen mm-hmm. joined. We were selling franchises before she joined. It's not like we just started selling franchises after we announced that she was going to be a part of the brand. And the reason that we were able to attract her, but also the reason that we were able to sell franchises prior to her joining is because the product works, because right. It is something like, and so that's actually the biggest advice that I would give to, an entrepreneur that's like kind of thinking of going down this path, because it's not easy, but just make sure that there is a market demand for what it is that you are building. But make sure it's quality. It's quality product that actually serves a need. And we've done a ton around that. We've been in multiple clinical studies. We've got a board of doctors. We weren't messing around with the fact that we were going to prove out that this method could do the things that we said it was going to do. And mm-hmm. so I think that's a really important point, too, is that I think you've got to make sure that your product is needed and it works.
Right, exactly. Absolutely. Julie, who is your ideal franchise owner?
So this question is a funny one. Like, I'd love to just say that they're passionate, but that's not the ideal franchise owner. I love passion, especially in this particular industry. These owners are oftentimes in their community. They want to serve their community. They want to make their community healthier. We can do all of that. So that's great. And a number of our franchise owners were former digital members, or still digital members, to be honest, because they just really believe in the brand. But we also look for business operators, people that have led high achieving teams, people that have really served in some capacity of business where they understand P&L, financials, the ups and downs, that mm-hmm. just because you're having a bad month doesn't mean that it's over. It actually means that you just have to, really like look at the numbers and see what's working and see what's not, and do the right types of pivots. So we look for business acumen. Certainly I think what we've loved and what we've found and where we've awarded the most amount of units to any single franchise owner is other successful franchise owners. We've got a couple of franchise owners that are already successful in other concepts, and they've sort of come to us, and that's like amazing because they know exactly what they're getting into, which is pretty phenomenal too. But I think it takes business and passion for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Too many of us, I will include myself, awarded franchises to people in the very beginning of our franchise that had the passion, in my case, for sports. And I quickly found out that that was not the winning formula. That's knowing or loving sports had any correlation between success and execution. Not at all. It was all about the business acumen first and foremost. And that's a lesson that unfortunately a lot of us franchisors go through. I'm glad you got that lesson really, really early on. That was smart.
Yeah, we've learned a lot too. I mean, we actually are hosting another Meet the Team Discovery Day. We've got 4 franchisees in next week, and I sort of started off with, this is hard work. It's very extremely rewarding. But if you don't want some hard work, this is probably not for you. And the hard work, I've been working hard at this since 2017, but I work hard at it because I love it, because I believe in it, because it's rewarding, because we're growing. But I don't like to shy away from, it's not like you build it and then they come. I don't want that. Our most successful franchise owners know they've been inside the studio, they've worked through it, they're having success, which is awesome. But they also know that it took hard work, and I think that's something that I don't shy away from mentioning.
Good. Yeah, I have no problem with trying to scare people away and see if they keep coming back, right?
Yep.
What does day-to-day look like for a successful franchisee?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think it has a lot of twists and turns. It depends. We've got quite a few different ways that our franchise owners have worked, whether they're just in the studio, but they have a full studio manager, or they're serving as the studio manager, or they're, opening their second unit and they've got, multiple units that they're operating. But it can look very different in various areas that were open. Victoria, Canada, they're trying to like hold people off. They're waitlisted nonstop. So their day-to-day is trying to find more trainers, really trying to, optimize their schedule because they're waitlisted nonstop. Whereas, maybe perhaps Columbia, South Carolina, they're really trying to nurture the community because, so I think it can look very different, based on where these units are opening. But I think it's incredibly revarding because you are essentially touching people's lives in a healthy way. So that's great.
A typical Pvolve studio, what's the size of the footprint?
Yeah, so we go anywhere from about 2,000 square feet to really up to 3,000 square feet, but our we really like to be in that 2,500.
Okay. And are we talking just one-on-one, group? And is there a circuit involved? Because obviously you talked about the equipment. So kind of give me the vision here on what a studio entails.
So the main driver is the group training. So anywhere from 20 to 30 people in each class. And you definitely have all of your equipment, by your side. It's a really well-run machine. And the workout's sort of like always different, because we've got 16 pieces of equipment that we can like rotate in and out, which is really awesome. We also, a number of our units have personal training rooms. Because this is a new modality, sometimes people like to, and it's a huge part of some of our units' revenue on a monthly basis. Or we also have, at-home private training that we offer at the studios too. And then we've got your typical retail. We do have equipment that we sell, at these units too. So there's quite a bit of like retail that also adds to it. And then we do host a lot of events, for various companies, whether they're corporate companies or local businesses, that also, generates revenue to the bottom line too.
What's the investment range?
So right now, the build out, I think that we state in the FDD is around $400,000. But again, we're always trying to drive that down. through things that the consumer wouldn't notice. But certainly we're trying to make it as profitable for the franchise owner as possible. And so that's our most recent numbers that we state in the FDD.
Okay. And what about the territory? How far apart are usually your studios from one another, or what's your
right
goal
now, I mean, right now we've awarded around 52 locations. So there's quite a bit of distance between
Sure.
units, but I'm actually a really huge proponent of density and market can be an advantage. Co-op advertising, the way that our franchise owners can collaborate with each other, and the more that we grow this audience of, again, I call them flag flyers, a word of mouth ambassadors, the better for everyone.
Totally.
And we're still it's not like we're putting these on top of each other, but we try and keep about like a 15-minute drive between. And I think the drive is really important because there's statistics around fitness that really women won't drive longer than, I think it's like 10 minutes or 12 minutes to go to, their daily exercise. So that's worked out really well. The place that we've got the most amount of density is actually in San Diego. We have 3 units there, and they're all within about 15 minutes of each other, and 2 different owners that really collaborate nicely together.
It is a delicate balance, right, of putting studios, like you want to put them fairly close because you want the density, you want the collaboration, but you don't want them on top of one another. When I was an emerging franchise, one of the challenging conversations I used to have with my franchisees was just that, like, oh, you're putting somebody right next to me. And I always said, Julie, there's somebody coming next to you, whether it's our company or another brand. Like, you would much rather have a fellow franchisee next to you than a competitor, and that you guys can protect each other from competition by owning the market. There's actually a much bigger benefit to you guys having that density in the market than worry about whether somebody's 15 or 20 minutes away, because we can't prevent competition from coming in, but we can certainly prevent, or I want to say we can slow competition if we own the market. Like if PVolve owns San Diego, who's going to want to open a competing studio?
Yeah, that's really a great point. I love that.
Yeah, because competition is coming one way or the other. You can't prevent somebody else from coming in. So there is a huge benefit. And the other thing I would tell people, Julie, is that one of the things I try to do when I was strategically trying to grow my companies, I would always think, how would I beat my own company? Like if you ask yourself, how would I beat PVolve today? One of the ways you would beat PVolve is having many competitors in a market where if a franchisee had too big of a territory. And that's another way of looking at it, is like, hey, I want to make sure that we have multiple studios in there because it insulates you and protects you.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. I totally agree with you.
What about what trends are you seeing in your industry in a sector that is so huge in franchising? Is there any changes or anything you see that's coming new, or the hot topic in the industry?
It's going to sound self-serving. It really is. But I mean, I read all of the trades, all of the, but it really is. It's all about longevity. It is about hybrid and this idea that the consumer wants choice. I think that's a huge part of it. I'm very in tune, obviously, with fitness in particular. Fitness is the industry that I'm in. So I'm paying a lot of attention to really what the trends are there. And women's health, and that sounds so self-serving, but like if you read anything right now, I mean, I'm a huge fan of like Restore and IV drips and like all the things. And so I think that an emerging trend will be like how some of these concepts are really being more strategic in terms of let's open right next to each other, because believe me, I want to open next to a Restore, because a Restore is exactly where my member is going right after they take a PVolve class, a physical therapist, a stretch lab. Like, it's like there is an affinity with all of us. And how do we create more ease for that consumer that wants all of it? Because I'm one of those consumers. I'm 48 years old. Like I want, to do whatever I can to live well long.
Yeah. What other brands have that you want to be in the same universe as?
I mean, I just have some personal favorites. I mean, I love Restore. I think Restore is doing a killer job. And if you're not familiar with that concept, it's really like the infrared saunas, the IVs, the compression, those types of the red light therapy. I also think the cold plunges. There's a lot of concepts that are doing that right now, some better than others. I think stretching is going to continue to be something that's going to grow. So I like that. I think some of these concierge health, like Next Health, and where people are trying to take more focus on their own advocacy for their long-term health, those concierge and like peptides and things like that. I think that fits in really well because, Pvolve, you will love it if you know what it does for you. You will love it. And it feels good. It's great. You're definitely going to start to see a change in your body, but do it for a while and you're going to experience this like aha moment where you're like hiking and you're better on your feet. You're downhill skiing and you're feeling like you're more mobile. It's just incredible. And I think that's an important thing. And I'll just say we do have clinical studies to prove it. We've been investing in clinical studies since 2019 and have everything from how we can build strength to a better balance for women 40 plus, which is unheard of, and to helping you with chronic lower back pain. So we don't just say it. We definitely try and prove it.
What about markets that you're expanding to? How do you guys select potential expansion?
So that's been a learning lesson too. I think, first of all, we do have an advantage because we know where our streamers are.
True.
We know where we've got density of, already well-aware consumers. So that's been a plus. But I think that there's some surprises too, because I think there's some secondary markets that we're having some success with right now that I wouldn't have necessarily thought Victoria, Canada would have been one of our first units, and it's one of our most successful units. And again, I think it goes back to something that you said, and there's not a lot of competition there. And it's a very healthy population that is used to doing physical activity. And the owner is just next level. She's unbelievable. So that's great too. So there's some surprises, because I think when you're an emerging franchise unit, you're maybe not being as discerning as to where you're going to open. And then you start learning very quickly, and I think now after awarding 52 locations, we sort of know what it is that we want to do and where we're maybe not ready yet because
well, you just don't know when you're starting out. You don't know other than you knew Chicago, New York, right? Where are the three corporate owned locations?
Well, they're LA, New York, and Chicago.
Okay. So three major metropolitan areas. So you don't expect Victoria, British Columbia to kill it. What is it about that franchisee, though? You said that she's amazing. All right, what is it about her that makes her just killer successful?
So there's a couple of things I'll tell you. Number one is she knows the fitness industry really well. So she had worked in fitness on the side of her like big, corporate job. Okay. She had always, been in and out of like an assistant manager, a studio manager. Like she just has a passion for fitness. So she knows the industry really well. I think number two is she is I don't want to swear, but she's a killer operator. I mean, she has been successful in business. She does not shy away from hard work at all. So she put in the work and she really spoke up when she needed something for her unit that could either help the entire network or was honestly something that like Canada might need different than the US. And so she really advocated for her unit. And she's like one of our most outspoken, but also supportive franchise owners. So she does that. She's also very tuned in to her community. She knows her community inside and out. She knows how to speak to her community. She knows she's lived in the area that she opened for a very long time. Her family is involved. Her daughters are some of our two top trainers in the entire network. And so they train and they sell out nonstop and she knows it. I think those are some of the things. She's hardworking. She's fiscally very, very smart. She knows P&Ls inside and out. So there's just a lot to her.
Hmm.
Lucille, if you're listening to this, she's just we listen when she speaks.
Yeah, there's something to be said as franchisors, as we find out, we want to get feedback from everybody and we want to get input. But there are certain people that when they give input, we know that this is really legit
Yeah.
versus somebody who, how do I say, is a constant complainer and not getting anywhere. We know they're not putting in the effort. Like when somebody, Lucille, speaks up, it's like, okay, we know that she is not only trying, but she's doing. And yeah, it is next level. You mentioned earlier about when you talk to potential franchisees that you tell them it's hard work and it's not easy. And of course, Lucille's proving that on what it takes. Is there anything else in the due diligence process that you can share with the audience here that when you talk to a potential franchisee, you prepare them for or want them to think about before they jump further ahead with you?
Yeah, I'm really proud of how we manage the Meet the Team. And what the Meet the Team is it's an all-day meeting with multiple franchise owners or franchise candidates,
Hmm.
franchisee candidates that we're sending in our entire support system. And that's another advantage of us that we constantly hear at the end of the day of the Meet the Team is they're sort of blown away because they either have attended another Meet the Team or a discovery day in a previous time at another concept, and they're surprised that us as an emerging concept has such a support team, but we do because we started off as a D2C company. So we've got some sophistication around our resources, which is really nice. Meaning we've got somebody that really understands digital marketing, somebody that really understands sales. We've got a really robust marketing team. We've got a great real estate and development team, so I think that's sort of surprising, but I'm really proud of the way that day goes, because I think you walk in with one expectation, and not only are we going to wow you with what it is that we've built and all that it is behind the sort of black curtain. Like there's so much more to this than just like some sexy new brand that's
Right.
fitness. It's just like it's got a lot of legs. It's not a trend. So I think those are some of the things that are like really amazing is that we're going to definitely support you. But we have an open book to our franchise owners. So those franchisee candidates can reach out to any franchise owner, no matter where they're at in their stage, whether that's they're in build out, which can sometimes be the most frustrating part
Of
of, it's
course.
just like money's just going out, no money's coming in, to open owners that have been open for a month or pre-sell owners or owners that have been open for a year. So I think that's the most validating part.
Julie, that's really smart. I've noticed there are some emerging founders out there, franchisors, that try to control the narrative with prospective franchisees talking to existing franchisees. They say you can't call everybody. They tell you who to call. They tell them that I need to do the warm introduction, all of the things that just kind of raise your eyebrows. First of all, you can't do that, number one. But secondly, when they try to control the narrative, you start wondering, like, how good is this franchise if the franchisor is trying to keep prospective franchisees at bay and trying to control who they talk to, not sharing who's doing well, who's not doing well. I mean, we can't talk about item 19 outside of item 19, of course, but we want our prospective franchisees to call anybody and everybody like you're doing. You want to just encourage that. And I'm glad you do that. That's really, really important.
We're not just trying to build a franchise concept. We're not. We're trying to build a new way for people to work out, and we really believe in it. So I think everybody going in eyes wide open, and we need these units to be profitable, period.
Period.
That is our
Absolutely.
number one goal.
Right.
So I don't, like if you're not ready for this, like this is not for you, but if you are, we're going to support you. And, I think you're going to be a part of a really exciting ride.
Sweet. All right. What's this exciting vision long term that you and Rachel have talked about? I'd love to hear sort of what's the big picture, because you guys are visionaries, clearly. So where do we go from here?
Yeah, we could ask this at the beginning of every Meet the Team. And I think, and I hope that this doesn't sort of fall flat, but this is exactly what we're trying to do. We're really trying to build a new modality and market that people need. If you're a runner, if you're an avid runner, and you start incorporating PVolve 1 time a week, it can help you to run longer. We can help you to live younger, longer. And that is what we're going to continue to run clinical studies. We're going to continue to prove those things out. And so how we show up and how we are offered to the consumer, I think you're already seeing. We're going to be offered digitally and we're going to be offered in person. And we have a large amount of growth that we can still experience and really stay focused in building sort of like a high efficacy around, really what this method does. We believe like movement is medicine. It should be a part of your prescriptive care. And I think the world is moving in that direction. And I think we're poised, at least right now, although I think a lot of other concepts are sort of, tuning in. But I think the fact that we are so clinically backed is really allowing us to get a lot more in the market, whether that's like top partnerships, which I'm sure maybe you've seen a couple of them
Sure.
that we're able to offer to our franchise, owners. So that's what we're really focused on right now. And we're really trying to stay focused on that. We don't want to get distracted with, oh God, we could go over there and do this too. It's like, we've got so much more opportunity just with what it is that we're staying focused on.
Sweet. Yeah. That's another problem you see in franchising is people chasing the latest shiny object and running to another thing. You just don't get anywhere. You have to stay committed to your plan. You have to pivot, but you also have to stay committed. It's a delicate balance, but not just running to the next, shiny object for sure. I've seen that before. And it's unfortunate when you see people with a great product or great service and they're not going to amount to reaching their goals because they're always chasing something new.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
and that's a lesson we had to learn really early. So again, it's all about timing.
Yeah. What about the origin of the name? How did PVolve, how did the name come up? What does the name mean?
Yeah. So really, I guess it means personal evolution. I don't guess that. I know that it means personal evolution, that we're always going through an evolution. But I think particularly for women, from the time that we're 13, we start to have, our menstruation, and then we're having children, and then we're, dealing with our hormones, and we're dealing with our pelvic floor after we give birth, if we give birth, and, and then we're going through menopause. It's like, you're always going through a different thing, and your fitness should meet you where you're at through every stage of your life, because you change a lot from the time that you are 20 to the time that you're 70. And so we really wanted to meet that person at every stage in a really authentic way that could deliver something that they needed at that stage. So it's personal evolution. The P has stood for a lot of things over the years, precise movements, physical therapy, it has a lot of meaning for us, but PVolve stands for personal evolution.
Sweet. All right. Well, Julie, if someone was interested in learning more about PVolve, where would they go?
Yeah, at PVolve or pvolve.com. And then you can also find out information about franchising in our main nav there. And if there's ever anything that I can do to help, you can certainly DM me on Instagram at _ Julie Cartwright, JulieCartwright.
Awesome.
And I'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Julie. All right. Well, look, I finish every podcast with, I call it the franchise tip jar, because the franchise community is so generous with sharing information. So if you were talking to an aspiring entrepreneur and somebody who wanted to franchise their company, what would be a piece of advice that you'd give them before they jump into franchising?
Be ready for it. I think you better love what you do, stick with it and stick to your guns. And if you really believe that this is something that people need, just go for it. You're going to go through highs and lows, but with the right hard work, you can get there. So I guess that's my advice. That's what I've done.
Awesome. Julie, thank you so much for being on the show. I love it. I wish you and Rachel all the best with this company. And I can't wait to see PVolve absolutely explode throughout the United States.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.